Imagine this. You're a young family, pre-approved for a mortgage, searching for your first home in a quiet Connecticut suburb. You find the perfect house. Good schools, nice yard, just enough space to grow. But there's one big problem. It's not for sale. And it hasn't been for decades. Now let's flip the script. You're a 75-year-old retiree living in that same house. It's too big. The stairs hurt your knees, the taxes are eating up your savings, and you'd love to move. But doing so might actually cost you more. This is the quiet gridlock choking the housing market, especially here in Connecticut. It's not just about high prices and low inventory. It's about an entire generation of baby boomers being stuck in their homes. And the system is making it hard for them to leave. I'm going to be diving into a problem that's been quietly building over the past decade. And it's shaping the housing market in ways you may not have expected. That's right. We're talking about why baby boomers are choosing to stay in their homes long after retirement. You might think it's just about nostalgia and comfort. And yes, that's part of it. But there's a bigger structural reason behind it, especially in places like Connecticut. It really comes down to taxes, lack of incentives to move, and policy decisions that are effectively freezing housing supply. Let's unpack what's really going on here. Boomers make up about 20% of the US population. And a baby boomer is someone born between 1946 and 1964. Many of them bought houses in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And, not surprisingly, they've built up equity over time. Their houses are often paid off or nearly paid off, which means their monthly housing expenses are relatively low. So why would they want to move? But here's the thing. With all that equity built up, you'd think, why don't you just move into a smaller home? You could just pay it off. The simple answer is, it's too expensive to move. In Connecticut, where property taxes are among the highest in the nation, moving can lead to a huge increase in annual bills. Someone who bought a house in 1985, for example, for $150,000, and they might just be paying $4,000 to $5,000 a year in tax. But as they buy a smaller house or condo, they may suddenly be looking at $8,000 or more in property taxes. This problem disincentivizes downsizing and locks up family-sized homes that younger buyers desperately need. You might be wondering, how does this even happen? In some states like California, Oregon, Texas, and Nevada, they have property tax assessment caps. So when you live somewhere for a long period of time, your taxes are capped, so they cannot go above a certain percentage every time the property is assessed. So a home you bought 40 years ago that was $200,000 might be worth $700,000 today, but the assessor might only look at it on the books as a $250,000 house for tax purposes. That way it keeps your annual tax bill low. So people living in places like that are really not wanting to move because they have capped taxes. Because if you do move, then you're not getting that benefit of the assessed value of the home that you may have bought 30, 40, or 50 years ago. You'll be taxed at the current value of the home at the time you bought it. In Connecticut, we don't even have this capped tax benefit. You may get a little bit of senior discount in your property taxes based on the town you're living in, or like here in Connecticut, a jump in taxes can happen if you move to another town because the mill rate is different. The mill rate is basically the percent used to calculate your local property taxes. And town by town, they can be higher or lower depending on where you live. Connecticut has some of the highest property taxes in the country, averaging around 2.14% of a home's assessed value, depending on your municipality. And that's compounded by a lack of broad-based property tax relief for seniors. Some towns offer it, some don't. And sometimes it's just a couple $100 on a property tax bill of $10,000. So that doesn't really equate to much savings. Many retirees live on fixed incomes from Social Security, pensions, or IRAs. When moving possibly means doubling or even tripling your tax burden, the math just doesn't work out. And it's not always just about property taxes either. Selling a home can trigger capital gains taxes, especially if you've seen a significant appreciation beyond the $250,000, $500,000 exemption that Connecticut allows. And another bonus, Connecticut has an estate tax, one of the few states that still does. So for high net worth boomers thinking about their legacy, staying put can help them with estate planning, especially if they've set up trusts that involve their primary residence. All of this creates a system where staying in the home, even though it's too big and too much to maintain, feels like the only financially rational choice. So what does this mean for the housing market here? The boomer lock-in has a direct effect on housing inventory. In many Connecticut towns, homes suitable for families, 3 or 4 bedrooms with yards and good school districts, are being occupied by 1 or 2 people well into their 70s and 80s. Meanwhile, younger buyers, millennials and Gen Z, are trying to get into the housing market but finding there's simply nothing available. Inventory is low, prices are high, and turnover is sluggish. And this bottleneck contributes to the overall housing affordability crisis. And it's not just in Connecticut, though the state's high tax burden makes the problem worse here. Nationally, it's been seen that senior households are choosing to stay put longer than previous generations. And another reason people don't want to leave their homes, and I don't want to downplay this, is for emotional and community ties. Many boomers have lived in the same house for decades. They raised their families there and built strong ties to neighbors, schools, and the community. Leaving a long-time home can feel like giving up an identity, not just an address. Obviously, this is something that can't be resolved with a policy change because it's not financially motivated, but it does keep them tied to their homes and stubborn about leaving them. So how do we encourage boomers to sell their homes? One idea is targeted property tax relief. Some states offer what's called a circuit breaker. Basically, it's a program that caps property taxes for seniors based on their income. Connecticut does offer limited relief, but it's complex and not widely utilized. Expanding these programs, or better yet, making them automatic, could really help. Another solution would be to eliminate or reduce capital gains taxes on the sale of primary residences for long-term owners beyond our existing exemptions. That could free up billions in locked-up housing wealth. Another option would be to encourage the development of senior-friendly housing. That would mean accessible condos, one-floor living homes, walkable communities that allow older adults to age with dignity, but without the burden of maintaining a 3,000 square foot home. And local zoning reform is also critical. In many Connecticut towns, building duplexes or townhouses is either restricted or outright banned. And that really limits housing choices, not just for boomers, but for everyone. So in the end, this isn't just a story about boomers. It's a story about how tax policy, housing policy, and demographic shifts intersect in a very real and very personal way. We need to stop thinking about the housing market as just a place where people buy and sell homes. It's a living ecosystem, and right now, it's out of balance. And until we create real financial incentives and remove the tax penalties for older homeowners to move, many of them will remain stuck, and the next generation will remain locked out of the housing market. If you liked my video, please subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time, have a great day.